and get some booms in the chat for another walkthrough of the Textguides for the Paradise Island Tournament. Welcome to Mr. Erelic Matthew. Welcome, buddy. How are you doing?
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be back here with you guys. It is such an honor. Thank you very much.
Glad that was a weird. Erelic Gaming is the name of the channel, obviously, and we have RJTV in the house as well. Welcome, sir.
What's up, everyone? How you guys doing? Awesome to be here.
So, as normal, we do have a walkthrough here. We're gonna do, we're gonna talk over hole 1, hole 2, every hole in the Paradise Island tournament, giving you the information you need to start practicing. Matthew is going to cover rookie, RD is going to talk about pro and expert, and I'm going to talk about master. And hopefully this is going to be some knowledge that you can use and improve your tournament play. Make sure that you do subscribe to all of our channels. You do have the channel here, obviously, the Golf Clash Tommy channel. You have Erelic Gaming here on YouTube as well. Click and subscribe. We have It's RJTV as well to subscribe. Link to all 3 channels is in the description down below. And obviously, if you do want to get the tournament text guides, you can become a Patreon. Patreon.com/GolfClashTommy. So, boys, how do you feel about the upcoming tournament?
What do you think, RJ? What are these scores going to be like?
Jeez. Minus 30 something.
Yeah, I'm thinking like rookies are going to look at probably, 28s to 30. I'm trying to put it together. It's difficult because we have played a lot of these holes before, but that doesn't make them gimmies either. So
now wind direction will definitely play a big
role. I'm going to say 28 to 30, and rookie's going to take home a top 3 banner.
I'll go 32, 34 in a pro and expert.
And I think we're going to land the same in master, as you guys both said. We've played this hole a ton of times before, but, obviously, if we do get a bunch of headwind, it's going to be tougher to draw. So we're going to see. But in the end, we say all here, thank you so much for watching this video with us 3. And make sure you have your pen and paper ready. So let's go to hole number 1. So, for hole number 1, we're going to play a par 4 of the Cajon Resorts. Matthew, how do we play from front tee?
Tommy, I just want to say quickly, this is the very first hole that I ever played on stream in a tournament, so it's a really special one to me. And I'm going to play it at 20% downhill elevation with a Marlin or Quasar ball. I do like a little bit of right spin on this shot, and I prefer to make it with the quarterback up where that first black box is and roll it up past the bunkers. Make sure to put max right spin on your ball, and you should leave yourself a clean line to the pin for the approach, which you do play at 0% on the second shot. I like to use a long iron, such as a backbone, but you could use a different club if you prefer. I think accuracy and ball guide are important stats to look for here. I like to apply 1 to 2 bars of backspin and aim it at the hole. RJ, what do you guys do from the second tee?
It's pretty much the same thing as you, 20% elevation. We're going to be using our main clubs that we use most of the time, which will be like your Thor's Hammer, Apocalypse, or Extra Mile, depending on what you got. In a tailwind or crosswind, I like a Power 1 ball, and then if we do have a headwind, we're going to have to, since we're shooting from max distance right by that bunker, I would go straight to the Power 3 ball because it gives us more room with the extra distance that you gain for your shot. We're going to land right before the bunker with full top spin, full right spin, and a little bit of right curl, and that'll set us up nicely for an accurate long iron shot. I'm not naming like a specific one. Whatever long iron you feel you could sink from distance. 0% elevation on the second shot. What do you have for master, Tommy?
Yes, we are going to focus on the left-hand side here in tailwind and crosswind. We're going to try to get the ball to be as far down the fairway, not close to green necessarily. We're going to go to that little hole in the fairway that I'm zooming in on here on the screen. Use as much topspin possible. If you do have a straight tailwind, I would consider to reduce, if you play with an Apocalypse level 7 or level 8, to only go with 6 or 7 bars of topspin. But otherwise, normally as much topspin as possible to try to clear the bunkers there on the right hand side. Maximum distance with a 20% over adjustment, and we're gonna most likely play with a Kingmaker. We could also play with a ball that gives us maybe a win 4, maybe a win 5, 3-point ball, burns ball, the new baseball ball. that is also in the game to, you know, have an easier time approaching the pin, because we do want to play with a short iron if we can choose. That's going to, you know, make the shot much easier to try to drop, and I rather prefer to play a little bit aggressive for my drive, so I then can go and play with the short iron instead of that long iron. If we do have a headwind, we can play over to the right side where there is no line. We bounce on the fairway that I zoom in over the rough to the other fairway, and then we're going to go for the second shot to bounce over the bunker, and that shot is then going to be a long iron, but that's only going to be if we do have a headwind. So no elevation for the second shot. Interesting hole, and I do think an eagle here is definitely not going to be a gimme, so be focused, be prepared, and get your shots dialed in. So for hole number 2, we get our first par 3. Matthew, how do we get the hole in one or close to it?
You know, this is a really good chance to pick up an extra drop. I would argue to say probably the best par 3 chance in this tournament. You can play this shot with the basic ball if you choose, but I do recommend that rookies play probably with a navigator or at least a marlin to reduce the wind by some degree. Put about minimum 4 bars of backspin here with your what do you call it? The backbone club, excuse me, and aim right down where that black box you see on the image is. And basically, you're going to have your ball guide aimed directly at the hole. You will find with the lower level backbone or other clubs that the ball guide might not reach right to the pin, but aim directly, and you're going to have a really good chance of sinking this one. Just remember that backspin, 4 bars at least. You might need a touch more. RJ, what's your path to the hole-in-one?
I agree with you, especially on the navigator. Even though we're hitting from the second tee, we'll still be at good distance. We're going to be using a sniper. I believe we're going to need 8+, or even a guardian if you don't have your sniper that high. Possibly you could use a long iron, but with this black line here, I would go with 4 bars of backspin, and you want to set up on the fairway where it flattens your bounce out. You'll be able to tell by the ball guide changing shape dramatically, I guess is the best way to put it. That's the area you want to be in, and I believe that's a sweet spot where you will get some drops, like Matthew said. Is that possible also in Masters, Tommy, or you got a different approach?
We unfortunately need to take a different approach here, and that is that we do need to play according to the white line that you can see, or like the white box, or like, yeah, whatever you want to call it. We're going to bounce on the first fairway, then it's going to take the second bounce approximately where the first black box is, and then roll towards the pin. The reason we cannot go for the backspin shot is that we are most likely going to be out of range and have to overpower, and that's going to be too difficult to get any consistency with that type of shot. So we're going to play with a sniper here and bounce there on the fairway. If we do have a strong headwind, we're going to most likely see us playing with the quarterback or the rock instead. A wind resistance 5 ball here is very, you know, preferred. Because always when it comes to par 3s, if we can get the wind to be between 7 and 8.5 miles per hour instead of like a 10 to 15, you know, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to get that ball to green and get that one in the hole. So white line for Master, we're going to play 20% over adjustment based on what club range we are in. So, hole number 3, the Oasis makes an appearance. So, Matthew, how do we play hole number 3 from front tee?
Geez, you know, this is, I think a hole we're playing anything less than a power 3 ball is going to make it a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Choose a Titan, as in that's what I'm probably going to play, especially if you're not comfortable with using overpower. Adjust for 10% downhill elevation, and then the drive is just a matter of using maximum topspin, 3 bars of left spin, and aim to double bounce as far down that third fairway as possible, up by the third black square. The second shot played 20% downhill. It's safest to play using a big dog aimed at the left part of this left to right sloping green. However, depending on the level of your clubs, you may be able to reach the green with a Viper or a Sniper, but it's situational depending on your clubs. RJ, I'm not a big fan of this hole. Can you make it any easier in Pro and Expert?
No, I can't. I once again, for the third time, I feel like a broken record. I agree with just about everything you said. Well, actually, everything you said. 10% is the adjustment. I actually wrote it down as a triple bounce, but it is a double bounce, and it's just kind of difficult to, with extended and contracted ball guides, and even with a side wind, you're going. It's a high risk drive, but it's a drive that needs to be made. I usually go with Thor's Hammer, APOC, Extra Mile, and a Kingmaker because we want to tame that wind as much as possible, especially for the drive. And then I usually use full topspin on any one of those three clubs, and I actually have a Thor's Hammer level 6, which has a lot of topspin. But then obviously you're going to pull, you might not be at full max distance. You just want to make sure that you're using a ball guide that shows you making all three bounces, and you definitely don't want to roll off onto the rough beyond that third box. So full topspin may not be for you. It depends on wind direction. It depends on quite a few things. You also want to throw in about 3 bars of left spin because the final black box, that green or the fairway slopes a little bit, so that'll counteract that. Then your second shot will be a sniper, 20%. I got sniper 9 plus. I feel like anything lower than that, I would go back down to my big dog. And just keep in mind that the green slopes left to right. I've yet to ever actually nail it perfectly, but it looks like there could be a shot there where you aim to the left of the hole, it falls down the putting surface into the hole. Hopefully that happens for me and you. What you got, Tommy?
Yes, first and foremost, Oasis, I dislike these holes so much. This is my least favorite holes, and so it's going to be extremely interesting to see how we're going to cope with it from 30, and especially what type of wind we're going to get. If we do have a crosswind or a tailwind, we're going to play left side, black line, and do a double bounce over to the final par, exactly as Matthew and RJ just explained. Second shot is going to be with a sniper if the wind is not... let's say if it's a wind right to left, then we're going to have some headwind for the second shot. Then we are not going to pick the sniper as the wood club. But if we have any other type of wind that makes us play black line, then we're going to play sniper, or we're going to change to the cataclysm to give ourselves more distance than, if we do have a wind right to left. If we do have a headwind, we cannot... Even if we go max overpower, we play power 4 or power 5 ball, we cannot go left side. We need to play on the most boring side, which is right side. Because I feel the right side is super boring because it takes away the albatross opportunity pretty much, everything. And then it's basically just a way of trying to survive and get the eagle. So depending on the wind, we can either get a tiny chance for the albatross on the left side using black line, or we can have a lot of pain trying to just save the eagle or get the eagle using the white line to the right. 10% over adjustment for the drive and 20% for the second shot. We play the same elevation no matter what tee box we're playing from. So, hole number 4, par 3, considered to be one of the harder par 3s in the game. So Matthew, how do we play from front tee?
Yeah, Tommy, I agree. I think it's a very difficult par 3. One that I do not consider a typical hole-in-one, especially from the front tee. It will happen, but it's not any guarantee. There are 2 different scenarios that I see as options, and they both play at 10% downhill elevation. The first scenario is if we have a headwind, and I find that pretty unlikely, but in Rookie lately we have had a few little bits of headwind. We can do a rough bump directly from the front left of the green on that black square, with an extra mile and a marlin ball, power 0, 1.5 to 2 bars of backspin, max right spin, and a little bit of right curl. It's a really iffy shot. Don't hit great. You're going to find yourself in a world of pain. This is not an option that I prefer, but it exists and it's worth exploring. The second scenario is that we have either tailwind or crosswind, and I'll choose a navigator ball for the added wind resistance, and then we'll bounce on or near that white square. With a wood club such as a Guardian, using 4 to 6 bars of backspin. I'm going to try to bounce over that rough right near the green and get it to stop up and in the hole. It's not a hole I expect to drop very often, but perhaps RJ has a different perspective on this one?
Yeah, actually, from using the rough bump, because you mentioned that, I would say that's definitely a shot that's there, but I completely agree. I think it's too high risk if you hit great or whatever, unless you bring like a quarterback or something, but then obviously you're going to want some kind of tailwind, I would assume. The way I actually have to play this in my notes is using a rocket or Thor's hammer, obviously depending on where you are along with your clubs. White line, and I would also use a wind ball just to, well, on all par threes you want to use a wind ball actually. And side spin isn't really a big deal. I apply 2 left spin, 4 to 6 back spin. Yeah, that's basically what I do. If you want my information on the rough bump, it's basically with a quarterback rough bump, about 1.5 back spin, and about 25% curl. But we were just talking before going, it's a little glitchy. 10% is what I have in Pro and Expert. What do you got, Tommy?
Yeah, I do have same as you both have. You know, we have a rough bump, but the rough bump is famous for being very glitchy. And if you are just slightly off or you hit a bad great ball, you are most likely going to put yourself in a very bad risk of getting. So there is a way getting consistent result from the rough, but I don't like shots where, you know, you're kind of that you kind of must hit perfect for getting a decent result, and it's not even sure that you're then getting it in the hole. But we're gonna see people trying the rough bump out as a first option in Master, because whenever there is a rough bump, you know, it's like a magnet basically. We all draw each other towards that freaking rough bump and trying to get it. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just I don't like the risk that we're getting with that rough bump. So we will be looking at the white line, and therefore we need backspin. Thor's hammer, high level apocalypse would definitely be the 2 clubs to use there. In the end, if we do have a strong tailwind, I doubt that max backspin shot will be enough with backspin, especially if you're not like having like a Thor's hammer level, you know, level 6, level 7, level 8, where you have a lot of backspin. Then I would suggest that we try to find, a double bounce towards the pin, backing up using the first fairway or even the second fairway, and look into and explore there. The reason I'm not really, like you can hear on my way of explaining it, and I'm not sure the way we're gonna play it, is because this whole, sorry for the language, but it sucks. Like, this is a really, really tough par 3, and it's very hard to get any consistency. So we're gonna take the birdie, and if we get hole in one, we're gonna celebrate as we won gold. Hole number 5, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna come to a par 4, which is interesting. There's a lot of lines on the picture. So Matthew, how do we play hole number 5?
Yeah, Tommy, I totally agree. I see hole 5 as having so many different options to play it successfully in every division, really. So to me, the average rookie player will be well served to play up the black line at 10% downhill elevation using a big topper and a katana ball, especially because we want that left spin. The fairway, right where the second black box is placed, dips to the right. So you need to be careful there. Make sure to use 6 or more topspin, maximum left spin, and have your ball land close to that second black box. The second shot, then you'll be left with a 0% elevation rough bump. Either a long iron, such as the Goliath, or a short iron. I like to use the Hornet here for the topspin, depending, of course, on your drive distance. Use 1 to 3 bars of topspin for that rough bump and aim directly at the hole. I just want to quickly touch on mentioning that I do like the blue line in rookie. It can be played with an extra mile bounced over to the second fairway, and then a wood club such as a sniper for the rough bump. It depends on the wind quite heavily. So a lot of options here to think about based on your club and ball inventory. RJ, what do you see as the best options from the second tee?
I don't. I hate this hole. Just take the par. What you got, Tommy? No, I'm just kidding. Actually, for this particular hole, I have a rock or a quarterback would be my preferred club if we do have tailwind. But if we have headwind, we're going to have to go with one of our bigger clubs like Thor's Hammer, Extra Mile. Definitely want to use a par 3 ball. One thing, my drives do often end up in the rough here, but I got to say, if you bring an accurate something easy to control, rough iron, you can still do the rough bump and have an opportunity there. However, I don't want to give you directions based on going in the rough. So set up by the left rough with full top spin, and I have full top spin and full top spin. One of those is, I'm assuming, full left spin, taking the the black line there. We're going to go with 1/2 ball of left curl, and that'll get you into long iron or short iron distance. You'll have a rough bump there with 1 to 3 top spin. Just in case you do get into distance for the short iron, I would probably recommend the Hornet over the Thorn, because especially in Pro, your Thorn may not have 3 top spin if that's what's needed. The one break we do get on this hole is the second shot is 0%. So the rough bump's definitely there for the taking. Now I pass it to Tommy.
Yeah. Okay, in Master, I would say that all 3 lines is viable options, and all depends on the wind. If we do have a tailwind in some sort, like let's say we have a straight tailwind, we can actually use the second, or like the first bounce to be where the second black marker is, or second black box is, and try to go for green in one. It's actually possible, but obviously, you know me, I don't really like shots like that where you need a little luck, you need to roll through the rough, and I hate to be in rough irons and sand, and in rough and sand, because I miss those all the time. So we're going to try to use the white line in crosswind, and when we do have some sort of tailwind, and we're going to want to bounce on the first fairway over the rough, and then roll that one as far down the fairway possible. And that's going to be possible to do with not having to overpower our shot, and it will also be possible then to use yardage notes if we do hit a perfect ball. Because with a great ball we will change, how much distance we have left towards the pin. So always with a perfect ball when we don't have a linear hole. Then we go for a short iron from distance there, and that short iron is a very good one, because there is a tiny bit of, there is a tiny funnel on the green that we can use. We just need to line it up properly, and then that's going to be a very good chance for an eagle. Using the blue line in headwind, we lay up using the driver with the most distance. We still need distance in Master as it is from 30, and then we're just going to lay up to the right, and we're going to have a sniper towards the pin. But as always in Master, I try to stay away from recommending a wood club if it's not an absolute must, because the percentage of hitting perfect in Master with wood clubs goes down drastically. So we should always try to get into long iron or short iron distance to maximize the opportunity to hit perfect. 10% over adjustment for the drive. Second shot, no matter what line you're taking, is going to be 0. Hole number 6, the second of the par 5s. Kohong Resorts again. So how do we play hole number 6 from front tee?
It's like all the par 5s here. Pretty long. I definitely recommend playing with a power 3 ball, such as a Titan, to make that second shot a lot easier and not need any overpower. So basically, you're going to be playing there with a longer wood, such as the Big Dog, if you don't use a power 3 ball. So I set up the drive with 10% downhill elevation and maximum top spin, maximum right spin, and aim directly down the middle of that narrow fairway. So right where you see that first black box, you're basically going to aim to hit there and roll up towards the second one. The approach shot that I was speaking about in the beginning, it's deceptively difficult, and that's where I kind of think about it, because you shouldn't take it lightly. There's a very well placed bunker and rough in front of this green. So with that said, if you have a good drive and you have the power 3 ball, the opportunity to use 2 to 4 bars of backspin and score an albatross with a sniper or a viper, it's a real possibility. But if you play this drive too conservatively, you're going to find yourself in a very difficult position, even sometimes to get the eagle. So, RJ, do pro and expert players have the same opportunity for this extra drop, or what's the plan?
I believe so. Like you said, 10%. I actually have the rock down as one of the options, assuming we have the wind at our back, meaning it'll take the ball further. However, if we get any type of crosswind or headwind, you're going to have to use one of your power clubs that you normally use. It's just with how skinny of a fairway it is up there, it's nice to have accuracy when you bounce where the first black box is over the sand and get your ball to roll up as far as possible without getting into the rough. I would say 3 to 4 top spin would be what you'd want at least to have on your club. So I guess a quarterback could work too if we're talking about a tailwind. But again, this is only if we're talking about a tailwind. But regardless of what you use for your drive, your second shot is 0%. There is a shot to have a sniper there if you have a higher level sniper for that excellent ball guide and excellent accuracy. However, if your sniper just isn't up to par there, no pun intended, the big dog will definitely get you there on the green. Tough albatross, but definitely everyone's going to be eagling this who's going to be, in the top 10. What do you got for Masters there, Tommy?
Yeah, we're gonna play exactly the same way. Like, we're gonna stay away, as you can see, from the left-hand side every single time. Like, there is no point. It's basically there to fool us. It's a very simple drive to get there, but you cannot reach for the greenie too if you get there. So, stay away from that. So, we are either going to go aggressive or we're going to go just conservative, and meaning white line. If we do have tailwind, we can play with a little bit of overpower, try to gain more distance, and then get up further and have a long iron towards the pin. Or if we do have like a crosswind or a headwind, we bounce before the bunker using as much topspin as possible, and then we have a wood club towards the pin. And remember what I said for hole number 5, if we can get into long iron range instead of wood club range, we are going to try to do so. Even though it might require a little bit of overpower, just because the percent of hitting perfect is going to be better with a long iron. Second shot, we are either going to go and attack the pin directly, like you can see according to the white line, with some backspin and then towards the pin, or we're gonna do a double bounce over the bunker and the sand, or like a single bounce over the bunker and the sand. There's also a third way there, which is not really explained. That is that there is a rough bump. It's a very tiny rough bump, and I would really recommend to not play that rough bump if you don't feel very, very accurate with your adjustment. And so we're gonna see how we're gonna do. I enjoy this par 5. I do think there is room to go for an albatross here, and I like those things with where you require a good drive, then requires a good second shot, and then you can get rewarded for an albatross. 10% downhill for the first shot. Second shot, we're not going to use any elevation whatsoever, and again, we'll see. An albatross is still going to be, no matter what, a big bonus. So, hole number 7, the final par 3, the dolphin hole. Yes, it looks like a dolphin. You're gonna see when I zoom in like this. So Matthew, how do you play hole number 7 from front tee?
Oh, there, I see it. I thought you meant the whole thing. Okay, it's there anyway. Yes, there's 2 ways to play, I think. I think the white line, it's a conservative route in my experience, but it's not really the way to score a hole in one. Definitely a safe way to go for your birdie. Use the 10% downhill elevation and a quasar or katana ball. Add 3.5 to 6 bars of backspin. In tailwind, of course, you're going to use more. In headwind, you're going to use less. And as maximum left spin that your ball allows. And you're going to have to apply about a half a ball of left curl. Aim to land roughly on that white square that you see. Some people might score a hole in one this way, but trying to reproduce the curl can be very difficult, and I don't really see much in the way of a consistent drop for this way. Now, if you take the black square, or the black line, that is the route that I prefer. I'm going to try to find an adjustment here in all wind conditions if I can. It's a rough bump. It can be difficult, but I find that it's a little bit easier to replicate and have a little bit better chance of a drop. Going to use the same 10% downhill elevation. And for me, I'm going to probably go with a navigator ball just to have a bit more wind resistance. You're going to set up with your wood club. I think it's approximately a green square to the left of the pin. And about 5 bars of backspin, because it is going to land on a left to right, or from you're looking left to right slope. It's going to kick the ball to the right. So, Mr. RJ, can you show me the path to enlightenment, or the hole in one, please?
Oh, sure, absolutely. This is one I feel I have dialed in. However, of course, Playdemic throws in that one in 20 shot where you end up clipping a tree and you end up in the rough or the sand, not knowing how you got there. And that way is playing with the sniper. I think maybe a sniper 9 would work here, but I use every bit of my backspin with a sniper maxed out. I also the great thing about a sniper is you can go 1-to-1, so you don't have to look up your wind charts or anything. But I have full backspin, full left spin, and 90% left curl. When I go 100% left curl, I feel like I have a 50-50 shot of hitting one of those trees that you see that white line on Tommy's guide going there, and that's a tough one. And some people are like, you know what, I don't want to risk that. So they go for the rough bump, and the rough bump can also be played with a sniper as well. But they changed the rough a long time ago, not any time recently, but the rough bump used to be the only way to play this. But it no longer is, because it's so easy to either get stuck in the rough if you play too conservatively, or you're going to roll way past the pin. But that's one way to secure the birdie as opposed to not. If you don't want to listen to the 1-to-1, or you want to use a different club besides the sniper, you're going to want to use something with a lot of curl, and it's going to be right at about medium distance. At least for the sniper, it's medium distance. And I actually have, for the sniper, the red ring by the left rough is the sweet spot for me. I absolutely love this hole and look forward to either dropping a couple or at least having some super easy putts. What about you, Tommy, from that third tee?
Yeah, from third tee, it's going to be quite different. And, we do have the rough bump according to the black line. We do have the curl shot according to the white line. But from third tee, the best way to play is actually to do a bounce on the first piece of fairway, which is like on the tail of the dolphin here, and then have the second bounce into where the first black box is. So we're actually using a little bit of topspin, like a 1 to 4 bars, depending on what type of wind angle we're going to have. And then we're going to play this one with a wood club that gives us a very good accuracy in a ball guideline. And in master, that's going to be the sniper. So we're going to bounce fairway into rough, roll down towards the pin. That is the way we have played it the last 2 times in master, because the wind haven't been favorable to either do the rough bump by the green or playing the curl shot. So that's why I wanted to explain that, as you cannot really see a line on the picture there. But sometimes in master we need to go outside the box and find different routes to make it a little bit easier for ourselves. A win 5 ball, please use that one if you can. 10% over adjustment from all the tee boxes, and this one could be actually a good one for us. I do think we're gonna see a decent amount of hole-in-ones here. Hole number 8, the final par 4. Matthew, how do we get the eagle from tee?
I'm not sure yet. I'm really torn between the black and the white line. For me, likely, I'm going to pick my shot based on the tournament wind. And what setup is going to give me the most favorable wind for the second shot. So I want to try to avoid having crosswind on my approach to the hole. That's how I've always looked at this one. So basically, I usually try to play the white line with a Marlin or Navigator, 20% downhill with a quarterback. And you want to just, because I like that the ball guide and the accuracy of the club allows me to get it nice and far down the fairway, as close to that second white box as possible, but carefully not over the edge of the cliff and safely between the trees on the left or the right. So it is a very careful drive. The second shot, you're going to play massively downhill, 40%, to that little small fairway island, and basically the one right beside the green, and the third white box. And you're going to use a club such as a Goliath, anywhere from like 1 backspin to 1 topspin, depending on the wind, to have a pretty straight shot to the hole. So, but I do also see many favorite players favoring the black line as the drive and the second shot. They're both a bit easier, but yet your second shot is now longer, and it's going to be outside of the iron range. So you're going to be required to use a wood such as a sniper to get it up to the green. So do the drive at the same 20% downhill elevation, but this time you're going to apply maximum right spin and 2 bars of topspin. With the second shot, you'll be left with a wood to the green. It's a 10% downhill, 1 to 3 bars of backspin right at the hole. RJ, what's your preferred route to play here?
Actually, I have the black line only, but I really like your explanation of the white line, and I'm sure that would also apply here. As a matter of fact, it might, depending on the wind, it might be something that I entertain, but I've always played this to the right side. You could play with a quarterback or a rock, assuming we have tailwind once again. I would go with a quasar ball here because we are going to be using all of the right spin and only about 2 top spin. We don't want to go too far because, as Matthew just pointed out, we don't want to be in sniper distance and having to use a rough iron or even worse, a sand wedge. So it's super important to stay on the fairway there. I'm sorry. Trust your ball guide, and just make sure you leave a little buffer so that's not an issue for you. And then, yes, I have a 10% downhill sniper shot with about 1 to 3 backspin, basically aiming right at the pin. But again, I'm really impressed with what you said about the white line, and I'll be exploring that as well. What do you got, Tommy?
Yes, and I'm going to look for the white line, like at least as a start, because from 30, the fairway on the right is going to be too far, and it's going to be required a lot of curl, a lot of topspin, and we're going to risk a lot. And the thing that we are at least the thing that we're gaining from playing right side is that we have a sniper shot towards the pin, and that's not really a favorite situation. So I would like us to just go far down the middle on the left, and then we're going to lay up and play with a long iron, either for the rough bump by the green with that very thin strip that we do have there, or we're going to bounce on the fairway, as you can see the final white box there, over towards the pin. Obviously, it depends on preference, because in the end we're going to play with a 40% over adjustment, so 40% downhill for that rough bump going to the left. And then you need to be very focused that you're not having a weird pull angle and you're adjusting your reins properly, because just a minor mistake there going for that thin rough bump is going to make you not clip the rough. You bounce on the fairway or green over into the sand on the back. And that's obviously something we all kind of recognize maybe from other type of courses and such. Just something to really have in mind if you're gonna go for that rough bump. I'm going to explore that route at least as a start. Then we're going to see what we're going to do with tailwind. I remember we have been playing a massive power hook on this one, trying to get to green in 1, which was an interesting line for sure, but very, very difficult. I wanted to mention it because I think those of you that played the Spring Major when this one was last featured actually remember that type of aggressive approach that we played there. The drive, 20% over adjustment from the third tee, and then as I said, 40% over adjustment for the white line. And obviously if you for some reason still gonna go black line, then it's 10% over adjustment for that second shot. Hole number 9, the final hole in this walkthrough and also in the tournament. And we're playing from front tee first. So Matthew, how do we play this one from front tee?
It's a long one. This is definitely another, difficult to get to the green in 2 if you take the left route. But if you take the right side, it's going to be a really straightforward play here with an extra mile at 10% downhill elevation. Tighten ball, if I didn't say that already. Use maximum left spin and a maximum of 4 bars of top spin. You might even want to take off a bar there or 2 just to be very careful not to use too much, because you can definitely roll into the rough on the far side of the fairway. Most people do also apply a small amount of left curl here on the drive. But be very careful. It can be dangerous, could lead to disaster if you're not 100% sure what to do. The second shot, I'm going to play also with a Viper or a Sniper at 0% elevation. 3 to 4 bars of topspin should get you up to the green at that hole. It's a tough one to dial in, but I do think we're going to see some consistency on this one by the weekend for many players to get an albatross. RJ, what do you think the chances are of scoring that alba in Pro and Expert?
This is either going to be a hole people love or a hole people hate. And the reason is because of that albatross opportunity. The very first step you need to take is make sure you got that 10% Much like you said, make sure you land your drive good. You're going to be wanting to use a distance club, APOC, Thor's Hammer, Extra Mile. You're going to be wanting a Power 3 ball, Tightener, a Kingmaker. Depending on the wind, you could be using 4 to 5 topspin, but that's not written in stone. We need to look at the wind and everything. Full left spin, I believe, will be a must. And then our approach shot is 0% elevation. And if you have a sniper, I feel like, like a sniper 9+ or something similar to that, you're going to have an excellent opportunity. I remember this whole being dialed in or so close to being dialed in once you get your top spin and you aim it right at the pin. It's just sometimes, I don't think there's a funnel there, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just such a straight on shot with no elevation for that second shot that there will be drops here, and if you're the one that can dial this in, I see gold in your future. What do you got, Tommy?
Yeah, from 30, we're going to play the same way. Like, we're staying away from the left side all the time because that's just going to be pain. And we have all the trees in our face. It's just, again, like some of the Cajon resorts are kind of putting fairway left and right side where, one side is basically just to fool you. So the thing that we're going to do is that we're going to either bounce on the fairway over to the next fairway, or if we do have any form of headwind component, we are going to use max topspin and have the second bounce into the rough. So we're basically using first bounce fairway, second bounce into the rough that is in between the first and the second marker to then roll out on the fairway. This we do to not have to overpower a shot that is already tricky to bounce, directly over to the other fairway. Second shot, we play with a sniper and we're using topspin to align the ball, the ball guideline with the pin, and then we're adjusting with no elevation. I'm not ruling out that we might change the elevation to like 5%, 10% to just suit the rest of the adjustment that we're doing. And that's the beauty, obviously, with being able to use a different type of elevation for a shot like this. The only thing and the only goal we should have in mind here is to get ourselves close enough that if we hit perfect, we're going to feel it's either going to be around the hole or it's going to be in the hole. 10% for the first shot, nothing for the second shot here for hole number 9. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was the walkthrough of the Textguides for the Paradise Island tournament. And there's a lot of information here. Obviously, I hope you note a lot of things down. There is hole guides out on the channels. And obviously we all are going to stream. I'm very curious to see in the comments what you think is going to be the score to win. I believe we're gonna see around 32 to 34 depending on wind. It could be down to 30 if we have a very tough wind. Matthew, what do you think it's gonna be from tee here?
I think the average rookie is going to get a gold with a 29 under par. There'll be a little bit of variance there, but I think 30s are going to be tough.
RJ, what is your feeling for pro and expert?
I completely agree with you. 32 to 34. I think there's a lot of great players in expert that could be in masters. So maybe even a little higher, maybe some 36s if you get into the wrong bracket. I think the scores might be a little bit lower in pro, maybe closer to the 32s.
Interesting, it's going to be very interesting to see what win we're going to have in the tournament. All three of us is going to stream a lot, as always, throughout the tournament. So make sure, again, to subscribe to all the channels. Link is in the description down below. Thank you so much, boys. Hope you had fun. And,
thank you, Tommy.
Let's freaking crush it.
I love your new webpage redesign, by the way. It's finding the tournament information has been really excellent, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you
so much. And there go the dogs.
Yeah, okay, so let's round it up there. Thank you everyone for watching, and have a beautiful time in your Golf Clash game.